Hey everyone, welcome to This Week in the Purple Room. I'm Damon and my co-host Eric. We'll be discussing what went on this week. First, we're going to start with a few days ago, the Supreme Court ruled border agents can remove the razor wire erected by Texas. It was a 5-4 decision. And how do you feel about the border at the moment?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Well, personally, I think Texas should be allowed to raise as many wires as they want. Texas has to defend its border. There's an infiltration and a conflagration at the border.
Texas that's true, but there's also things in the week where Biden and their team are negotiating bills on the border. What's your take on that?
So I think negotiation's great. Let them negotiate all they want, but that has nothing to do with all the crazy fentanyl and the murderers and child traffickers and everything else that's flooding through the border. We have no idea who's coming through the border or what they're doing here, and they have to come through Texas and whatnot first. So people of Texas shouldn't have to wait around for Washington, D.C. to get its act together.
I mean that's true, but if it's still not working and it's something that's legal, then they should take the legal path. And again, like we're Republicans, so on Wednesday or Tuesday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott says that Texas won't back down after Supreme Court ruled to remove razor wire at the border. And there were comments online stating that, Republicans packed the Supreme Court, but the minute Supreme Court rules don't work in their favor, they're crybaby hypocrites. And do you believe that Greg Abbott is one of those?
A hypocrite? I think he's been pretty.
You don't have to play the Republican person.
I'm not. I'm telling you what I think. I think that he's stood on his ground for very long. Texas is the one who's going to have to educate the children of migrants who come over illegally. They're the ones who are going to have to supervise and jail and arrest.
But when it comes to things like abortion, they love what the Supreme Court did, and then now they're like against the Supreme Court.
Well, that's how the system works. You're not going to agree with everything, and the Supreme Court sometimes gets it wrong, and sometimes they get it right.
And then we can go to even where, I don't know. I just think that, again, when it's their time to follow the rules, it works for them. But when it's not, it's the rules for some reason don't work for them. But moving on to the next thing. So the Supreme Court asked to remove that razor wire, and Greg Abbott and all of them against it. But Tim Scott also this week got engaged to his, I guess, girlfriend, or I don't know who she is.
Hired actress.
But this is just right after the Republicans questioned his marital status when he was running for president. And also it's right after like people were starting to question his sexuality.
Tim Scott has no backbone.
So you think that the relationship is real?
I think it's a farce, and this woman only popped up when he was fake running for president. There's no low at which he will not sink. He will sell his soul for a little bit of power, and it's sad.
It really is. So also we know that also this week, this is before they actually won the New Hampshire primary, Trump was seen talking about his opponent, Nikki Haley. And Nikki Haley, and he said something, he had a new nickname for her, was Nimbra. And we're going to listen to him say this. 1 second. Do I have access to this? I guess I can hear it on Twitter. On Instagram.
It's a little rough. It's only the first one, though.
I'll edit everything anyway. But I want to hear what he says so we can laugh. That's how I need my iPad. But play it on your iPad. The next one.
Just felt good to me. And with her, it's just something that came. It's a little bit of a takeoff on her name, her name, wherever she may come from. But it's just.
What do you mean by that? What do you mean?
It's a little bit of a takeoff. I look at her name. I look at a lot of people. I do a lot of names for people, like Pocahontas. She said, my mother said I look like an Indian, so I started calling her Pocahontas. Some people say I'm very good at that, but.
Trump. One thing that I do give to Trump, that he is a character, and
he's the funniest of the funny.
He's a comedian, and also racist and ignorant at the same time. But I don't think we can expect anything other than that. So, in that same week, Nikki Haley responded to. When she said that, when she denied racism, she said she was the victim of racism. So how can you just go from denying it and saying that America's not racist to actually being the victim? And then we can listen to her talk.
We were the only Indian family in our small southern town. I was teased every day for being brown. So anyone that wants to question it can go back and look at what I've said on how hard it was to grow up in the Deep South as a brown girl. Anybody can look at my record and see when Walter Scott was shot down by a dirty cop, how I made sure that the Walter Scott family didn't suffer because we put the first body camera bill in the country in place. Anybody can look at the fact that when we had 9 amazing souls die in Mother Emanuel Church, I did something that no Republican or Democrat ever wanted to touch, which was call for the Confederate flag to come down because it would take 2/3 of the House and Senate and was an impossible feat. I don't know what you're implying with that, but what I will tell you is saying that I had black friends is a source of pride. Saying that I had white friends is a source of pride. If you want to know what it was like growing up, I was disqualified from a beauty pageant because I wasn't white or black, because they didn't know where to put me. So look, I know the hardships, the pain that come with racism. It's the reason that I fight bullies every day when it comes to racism, anti-Semitism, or hate, and I always will. If I didn't mention slavery on that day, it's because that's an automatic. There's always been, the Civil War's always been known about slavery.
It's nonsense.
Yeah, so you can't just sit here and deny racism and then go over your childhood and backtrack and say that your whole childhood was racist. That's
the issue with trying to be a Republican from a state like South Carolina is that you have to sort of skirt the line and say, well, of course there was some racism, but that all ended, or everybody just knows that, and while she claims that she every day, because she was a brown person, whatever in the world that means nowadays, fought some racism back when she was younger, that of course everyone knows that slavery was, the Civil War was fought over slavery. I don't think that is an of course. I think that there is a concerted effort nowadays to try to cut that actuality out of the history of America. And again, I will always say that the civil rights movement was 50 years ago. There are still people alive. Like, look at Ruby Bridges, who's 69 years old and still alive right now. This wasn't something that happened hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Exactly.
The Civil War was fought 100% over slavery. Most of the states that seceded listed slavery as the reason why that they seceded from the United States.
Right. Yeah, so it's just Nikki Haley, she wouldn't have got far nationally But you're slowly losing everybody.
I don't think she would have gotten far now. I don't even think she wants to. I think that just look, however she became super rich after being in the Trump administration, we have to look at that.
Right.
Because I think that whatever corporate donors she
well, Trump knows her donors because later in the week, after he won the New Hampshire primary, then he said that he would warn her donor. He was warning her donors don't come over to that side. But we'll get to that in a second. The next thing is Florida Republicans introduced a bill to use $5 million of taxpayer money for Trump's legal fees. I would say this is just crazy. What do you think? There's nothing to think. It's just preposterous. So they were planning to create a $5 million fund to help pay for former President Donald Trump's mounting legal fees. State Senator Ileana Garcia, Republican, has filed a proposal to create the Freedom Fighters Fund, which would provide financial support for Florida residents running for president who face legal action. And
Florida state government is one of the wackiest in the United States.
And that also could have been like another spin for Ron DeSantis to get on, because if you're running for president and it says a support for Florida residents running for president, and then who knows what's coming down the pipeline for Ron DeSantis, and you could switch. I mean, he's not running anymore.
Again, Florida state government is a joke. It has been a joke. It'll continue to be a joke for many years to come, as long as you have nut jobs running their houses of government down there.
Exactly. And fake Biden robocall urges New Hampshire voters not to vote for, and New Hampshire's Democratic primary, which was on Tuesday. Today is just like people got to learn how to differentiate real and fake. I know it's hard, but it's like...
No, he still won 55% against, was it Dean Smith, who got 35% or something like that. But even with not being on the ballot and having to run as a write-in, Biden got a larger percent in the Democratic primary than Trump did in the Republican primary, for whatever that's worth.
And then, of course, the 51st anniversary of Roe v. Wade passed this week, and Biden spoke on that. And no, that's something else. We can skip some stuff. Too far. How do I play it through here? Oh, here we go. I found it right here.
Wait to get sicker and sicker. Cruelty is astounding. An affront to a woman's dignity being told by extreme politicians to wait to get sicker and sicker to the point where her life may be in danger before you can get the care you need. That cruel reality is a result of extreme Republicans who for years have made it their mission to end Roe v. Wade.
I mean, I think Biden is, to me, he speaks coherent enough to know, oh my shit, a little battery. I think Biden speaks coherent enough for us to know what the points that he was making, and I still advocate for women to make their own choices. And also, they had an ad that come out, and here's the ad.
I'm an OBGYN in Texas and a mother of 3 wonderful children. Having this beautiful, messy, chaotic, but wonderful family, it's the joy of my life. I never thought that I would need an abortion for a planned pregnancy, but I did. 2 years ago, I became pregnant with a baby I desperately wanted. At a routine ultrasound, I learned that the fetus would have a fatal condition and that there was absolutely no chance of survival. In Texas, you are forced to carry that pregnancy, and that is because of Donald Trump overturning Roe v. Wade. The choice was completely taken away. I was to continue my pregnancy, putting my life at risk. It's every woman's worst nightmare, and it was absolutely unbearable. We need leaders that will protect our rights and not take them away. And that's Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
I'm Joe Biden, and I approve this message.
That was the ad that came out. It kind of went viral, and protect women's right to choose.
Yeah, so I support having as many civil rights and liberties as we can have. I will say that Donald Trump didn't overturn Roe versus Wade. The Supreme Court of the United States did. He might have appointed the justices who overturned it, but again, that's Ruth Bader Ginsburg's fault for dying in the court and not retiring under Barack Obama when he asked her to, and for believing more in her ego and allowing Donald Trump even to be in a position to put 3 people in Supreme Court. So, I think liberals are just as much to blame for why Roe fell as conservatives are, because Donald Trump is no big constitutional scholar, and I think he was just in the right place at the right time.
Right.
But yeah, right to choose, you should have your right to choose, because I really don't, it's not good when you have the government deciding what you can and cannot do with your own body and your own liberty. And it strikes at so many more...
politician is...
Exactly. Strikes at so many more rights that are gained at protecting your personal privacy and your liberty at home, which I think is scarier. We're talking about contraception. We're talking about the right to have sex. Of course, same-sex marriage, same-sex sex.
I mean, they did pass a bill that protects...
Well, they can pass whatever bills they want, but if the Supreme Court decides that it can be left up to the states and it's not a federal issue, then they can always overturn that. So, we really need to just take note of what actually is going on with these cases and not just on the surface.
So also this week, Biden and Trump became the primary winners of New Hampshire primary. And this is what a few of their voters had to say before and while they're voting.
I think the party's lost its moral compass, and I'm struggling with that as a longtime Republican myself. I think if you read some of what Donald Trump has said, it should scare the hell out of you.
Although voted for him twice, I don't know that I could, in good conscience, vote for him again. I mean, he does things that we teach our children not to do.
That aside, his policies we feel work great for the United States of America.
Do you think that any Republican has a chance to beat Donald Trump in the primary?
I like to think they do. I don't know. But what worries me is if people get into the mindset of it's a done deal thing.
I think New Hampshire needs to show the country that there is a viable alternative.
But it was a win in Iowa. Great.
If it's Trump versus Biden, what are you going to do?
That really puts me in a quandary. I frankly am more scared of another Trump term than another Biden term.
I would probably end up either voting for myself as a protest or for Biden.
Who did you vote for in 2020?
I voted for Donald Trump reluctantly.
If it's Trump versus Biden in the general, what are you going to do?
I don't know. It might be the first time I actually don't vote. But it's like...
Late morning off the dock. Gone maybe one day, maybe 2 or more.
That's where your fish comes from.
Andrew Konchak's job depends on the water and the weather.
Yeah, it's a little colder. Definitely a little colder. But, you get used to it.
Now, time to choose.
I'm with Trump because he supports fishermen, and this obviously is my livelihood.
Loyal to Trump despite stuff that offends him.
I don't like the way that he speaks sometimes. Can be a little ignorant and rude.
Loyal to Trump despite a wife who backs Nikki Haley.
When you hang your Trump flag, what does she say?
She said I was ruining Christmas and wanted me to take it down. And she took it down and then I put it back up.
Trump's resilience infuriates his critics. Yes, many supporters imitate his crude tactics and repeat his lies. But it's not that simple.
Who won the 2020 election?
Oh, it was Biden.
Debbie Katsanos is an accountant, voted for Bill Clinton twice, but is a Trump Republican now.
What are the 1 or 2 things you want the federal government to do ASAP?
Close the border and get this economy going.
Not a Joe Biden fan.
He's gotten caught in a lot of lies.
I didn't like him as a politician.
Got caught in a lot of lies.
Yep.
Trump's not known as the world's greatest truth teller.
No. No.
So why is it disqualifying for Biden, but it's okay for Trump?
I don't like politicians. And I don't think I don't think one term made him a politician, because I
think the party's lost its...
Okay, so you hear that some of them have their heads together, but some of them are still on the delusional train. Like, it was that John King said, what makes it better if you think Biden lied? If you think Biden lied, but Trump is a proven liar, what's the difference?
Personality cult. Some of these people like to be anti what they feel is establishment.
Right.
And Donald Trump came out claiming
like she said,
that
she hates politicians.
Yeah, he came out claiming that he's not establishment, claiming it to be everything else other than someone who was the president.
But that's like going into it with like blinders on, because it's like Trump
okay
is the person that you should be revolting against.
They don't see it that way. They thought that he was some sort of businessman. They buy the lie. And frankly, many of these people just aren't that intelligent. You know, you can vote however you want, vote your conscience and whatnot, but these people, they believe whatever news source they are watching that tells them what to believe and doesn't present another side.
Right.
You know, Donald Trump has been indicted 90 times, and they will say that all 91 of those times was just some liberal farce.
Right. And speaking of Donald Trump, here is Fox News going on his cognitive decline. So they're actually calling him out on his
And you're
bluff.
seeing Donald Trump increasingly get confused on the campaign trail. He thought Nikki Haley was Nancy Pelosi. That clip is brutal.
Fields and jungles of Vietnam. They delivered a swift and sweeping. You know that sweeping. It was swift and it was sweeping like nobody's ever seen anything happen. A victory in Operation Desert Storm. A lot of you were involved in that. A lot of you were involved. That was a quick one.
And you're seeing Donald Trump.
And people fall for this because it's comedy.
Right. I think that's Trump's biggest appeal. It's like he makes people laugh, and they think that, and
because
it
they
makes
are
him
not
likable because he's their
intelligent. So
right.
it makes him feel like he's speaking to them when he's speaking nonsense and gibberish. He has wild tangents that have nothing to do with anything, and they feel like he's connecting with them because it makes sense to them on a third grade basis.
Right. And Biden calling him out on Biden met with the UAW people, and he called them out. And first the UAW president called him out, and then Biden called him out. Let's listen to what the UAW president said first.
We, with entire communities, were being devastated. Hundreds of thousands of auto workers' families were left out in the street. It was our members and our retirees who sacrificed everything to save the auto industry. In that moment, Donald Trump said, and I quote, "I think that the unions are really, really hurting very badly what's going on with the auto industry," end of quote. Joe Biden, having helped save the auto industry, said the nation bet on the American auto workers and won.
I mean, I think he has a point there. And also you're seeing like record high stock markets and economy. And when Trump said it would crash, it didn't crash. And Biden went in on his jobs record calling him Herbert Hoover.
He came to office. By the way, the last guy said he's hoping for a recession. Because he does not want to be the next Herbert Hoover. He He's already Herbert Hoover. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who lost jobs when he was president.
Joe, way to go.
Look, since I came to office,
way to kill with
your
the
help,
audience
we've created
there.
14 million new jobs. 14 million. Nearly 800,000 manufacturing jobs nationwide. And that means we're creating American jobs and exporting American products instead of the other way around like we saw for too long. Unemployment has been below 4% for the longest stretch in 50 years, and it's going down. Wages are up. Household wealth is up.
Wages are stagnant.
We have the lowest inflation and fastest recovery of any major economy in the world. We have the fastest growing economy in the world. I know we have more to do, and we're making real progress.
See, my issue is they come out with all these numbers and say this is the best this and the best that in the world, and everything's up and inflation, but people don't feel that.
Right.
And that is to me a big reason why Trump is going to continue to gain support. Not saying that he'll win.
But Trump says everything is the best, and people don't feel nothing from him either.
Well, he says everything that Biden does is the worst, and he.
But everything he does is the best, and he had his 4 years.
I just think that a lot of people, especially millennials and people in that age bracket, feel like the American dream is lost to them, and that they are not advancing with this robust economy that we supposedly have.
I agree with you, but Trump had his 4 years to make us feel that way.
And Joe Biden's had 50 years.
But no, he hasn't. He has been a senator.
He was a senator for 47 years. He was a vice president for 8 years and a president for 4 years.
And that doesn't mean you have power.
As a senator and vice president and president, you can't get any more power than that.
But I'm saying, all right, so Joe Biden is showing us. We have record this. Joe Biden is president now. We have record high at stock markets and record lows.
Because Trump cut corporate taxes when he was president.
Okay.
So that's what they would say.
That's what they would say, but that doesn't make it true. But you're not there. You're Eric.
Well,
I'm saying what they would say.
Well,
and let's see.
How about that Herbert Hoover slam? Like, way to take it to the 1920s and 30s.
Yeah, I think see a lot of that stuff is like Biden. See, Biden tries to be funny, but it comes up as like your grandpa's funny.
Yeah, I think that's what he relies on, that he can just be just.
But you forget
just
a lot of them older white men. That's what they like. They want that father figure, and they see some of them see Trump as their father figure, and then some of them see Biden as their old white man father figure, because they can't really see like anyone else above them. They can't see listening to a black man or something tell them what to do, or somebody younger tell them what to do and how to run something. They need that older figure. And speaking of people loving Trump, Tim Scott loved Trump too, and he said it out his own mouth.
I mean, did you ever think that she actually appointed you, Tim? And think of it, appointed, and you're the senator of the state, and she endorsed me. You must really hate her. No, it's a shame. It's a shame. I just love you. No, that's why she's a great politician. So this is a great evening.
A few moments in my life I've been more embarrassed than to watch Tim Scott, who, I know Tim and I are both practicing Christians, but I don't know if he could pray like that to the other side. I mean, it was humiliating to watch what Tim Scott did as a sitting senator. And one time he wasn't even on the script. He interrupted Trump to pay homage. So I had to say that because it's bothered me all night on it right here.
Yeah,
what a joke! What a joke!
Good old Reverend Al Sharpton. He was right.
What a just joke of a man and politician, and just. You're
just the sycophant of the week. Can be I put that on the screen. Sycophant of the week, Tim Scott.
And then the big goofy smile, and it's like those types of people just happy to be invited to the party.
Exactly.
Even if
he probably had no friends when he was a kid.
You know, even if they're the clown at the party, they're just happy to be there.
And
that's terrible.
I love you. Like that was just, like Reverend Al Sharpton said, like that got under my skin, like my skin. Like, and he interrupted him, so it's like you had to get it out there. But also now they're probing Matt Gaetz. You know, he was messing with minors in the past, allegedly, and he also had a heckler at one of his speaking for Trump in New Hampshire. In Donald Trump's headquarters in New Hampshire, someone said, "What's the youngest schoolgirl you've ever been with?" To Matt Gaetz. And again, they are opening another probe into that.
Breaking news, sources say that the House Ethics Committee investigating Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz of Florida has now reached out to the U.S. Justice Department and to a woman with whom the congressman allegedly had sexual relations when she was 17 years old. Elections that Congressman Gaetz denies. We should note, Congressman Gaetz has never been charged with any wrongdoing here. CNN's Paula Reed has this exclusive reporting. Paula, what have we learned?
So, Jake, we've learned that the House Ethics Committee investigating Congressman Gaetz has done a new round of outreach to potential witnesses, including a woman who was still 17 years old when she allegedly had sexual contact with Congressman Gaetz. We learned they have also reached out to the Justice Department, asking for materials from its years-long investigation into the congressman, where they examined these allegations of possible sexual contact with a minor, along with other crimes. But as you noted, they did not ultimately opt to charge the congressman.
Trump also lashed out after he won. He lashed out at his former press secretary, Kayleigh, is it McEnany? McEnany. And I mean, you think she had a point? Let's listen to what she said.
Here's why I say this. This was actually a fairly good night for Joe Biden. When you look at our voter analysis, only 10% said, I would not vote for Joe Biden if he's the nominee. He won a plurality of voters who said he was too old. He won a majority of voters who are upset about the Gaza war. So the divides in the Democrat Party, and this is a small sample size, but perhaps aren't as stark as one would think. But when you look at the Republican Party, 7 in 10 Nikki Haley voters said, I would not vote for Trump. There was a Des Moines Register poll, 43% said, no, I wouldn't vote for Trump. If I'm Trump, I sit back and I exclusively focus on the general election. I take the posture of a presumptive nominee. I focus on number one, uniting the party, and number two, winning the independents, which Nikki Haley won 55 to 39%. That's what I would do. Nikki Haley, I mean, the closest margin is 30% in the states ahead. For all intents and purposes, he's the presumptive nominee. Yeah.
And Trump responded
Here's why.
With, I don't need any advice from Rhino Kayleigh McEnany on Fox. Just had a giant victory over a badly failing candidate, bird brain. And she's telling me what I can do better. Save your advice for Nikki.
So I think all of the respondents who are saying that they would vote for Nikki Haley in the primary but will not vote for Donald Trump at the end. I mean, in the general election, I'll take most of them at their word for it, but I think a lot of them are just lying. And that when it comes down to it and they have to go into the booths and press a button, they're going to vote for Donald Trump. I don't
believe it, because I think last time they did the same thing. They went in the booth and they voted Republican down the ticket, and they chose Joe Biden instead because, again, a lot of them are fed up with the craziness and he's not getting anything done. So I think a lot of them, like the one guy said in the video, I'm either not going to vote or I'm probably going to vote for Biden. And I think a lot of them got to, that's why all the numbers were skewed and everything else during the last election, because
to those people, if you're not feeling Trump and you just stay home or vote for Biden.
Yeah, I think that's what they're going to do.
Either way, stay home or vote for Biden. Don't come out and just vote straight Republican ticket because that's what you've always done and you feel obligated to just stay home. Let the Democrats take over. Let the Democrats come out and vote. Because we don't need you out there wishy-washy about it because the country has too much to lose.
All right. And so we know that MAGA Republicans are now attacking DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs that have been going on across the country, to include everyone, instead of just white people. And then we have, Charlie Kirk. He's been out there with Trump and, those people. And that's what they said about having a black pilot.
And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now thinking about that.
You want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
And that's why.
But here are these losers online saying that that's the reality that the left created. No, that's like your racism. There's nothing else. You can't say that's what the left created because they have diversity. Now I got to question if this black pilot is, qualified. They're a pilot. They don't just give it out to anybody despite what they think. And they also said that black people should only look up to people like Frederick Douglass, Ben Carson, and Clarence Thomas as our role models.
So it begs the question of, do they, say, thank God, I hope to God that my white pilot is qualified. Of course not, because they're racist. And what racism does is it looks at one characteristic, it looks at a race, and it says, I will attribute good things or good attributes to that race and bad things or bad attributes to another race. So that's just racism, it's foolishness. The one point that I think that those who argue against DEI or think what they're arguing against is that it's just racism on its face, is that it's in place to hold down white men or white males, which of course it's not. It's to make sure that white men and white males aren't the only ones who control every aspect of society. Now, there could be an argument to be made for keeping race out of things, and that the point of our...
It's hard. You can't, because the U.S. had spent hundreds of years making it about race. So it's, despite what you want to think of, that it may or may not exist, it does. And you can't, it's hard for people not to make it about race.
So their belief tends to be, or at least the ones who argue in good faith, is that the only way to stop discriminating on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race.
But see, that's the thing, is I think adding diversifying your team is not discriminating. It's just, you already had discriminated because your team is all white. If you are, if you had a company where it was already a mixture, then you don't have to have those diversity programs because you already had your company look more like America versus you just picked all the white people. So if you have a company and you're out there and all your pilots are white, I mean that may be because, again, there may not be that many black pilots just out there, and that's systemic racism most likely. But again, if you have a company and all the higher ups are white, I think that's a reflection of you, not a reflection of the system. It's just a reflection of your company. And diversifying isn't discriminating. It's just you hiring now not just all white people.
Yeah, and personally, I think that we fall into a trap when we even give credence to their argument. If America were a different country, then sure, we could say,
right,
this is discrimination against white males, etc. But that's what America was founded on. It's white supremacy. And the fact that there was a civil war, there was a civil rights movement, there were laws, the Civil Rights Acts put in place, there were the Reconstruction Amendments, 13th, 14th, 15th put in place. Yeah, you know, is that we have to have a correction, and the only way to have that correction, the only way for, say, black median household incomes to rise is to take a look at systemic racism throughout the country.
It's to tackle the problem.
It's to tackle the problem. And the problem happens to be that there wasn't enough diversity, equity, or inclusion in the country.
Exactly. And speaking of like diversifying, again, back to the border and back to abortion in Texas, they had over 26,000 rape-related pregnancies in 16 months after, you know, Roe v. Wade was turned over. Totally in the country, it's way more than that. But here's a video of Greg Abbott before stating that they would take on rape after that was turned over.
It doesn't require that at all, because obviously it provides at least 6 weeks for a person to be able to get an abortion. So for one, it doesn't provide that. That said, however, let's make something very clear. Rape is a crime. And Texas will work tirelessly to make sure that we eliminate all rapists from the streets of Texas by aggressively going out and arresting them and prosecuting them and getting them off the streets.
All right, so for one, that doesn't make any sense, because if the rape has already been committed,
all rapists off the street.
So how can you get them off the streets if you don't know if they're a rapist? And that 26,000 number is like just crazy. But I guess that's what they want. That's like the Handmaid's Tale of it all, is that they want all those pregnancies. They want more because they have that replacement theory.
They think
in their heads
that childbirth is some sort of gift from God, and each and every, say, pregnancy is God's gift and should be carried to term.
You mean each and every white pregnancy?
Well, you know.
Because that was the case, then black women wouldn't have to have the highest maternity mortality rate. But again, that's another story.
To some, abortion is just black genocide. So, you know, I
mean, that's not true. I mean, again, if the poorest people in the country shouldn't be out there having kids if they can't afford them. If you're the first one to blame them for assistance, even though they're not the ones with the highest numbers. Actually, black women have the highest numbers in education, if anything.
The bait and switch here, though, with Texas to say, first of all, that they will just get every rapist off the street. That's ridiculous. Right. There will always be rapists out there. Rape is, like you said, a crime and will continue to be because people out there will rape. The issue is that women now are forced. They're forced under the law to carry their rapist children to term. Okay, which is horrifying. It's like something out of a you know, like
Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, it's
exactly.
Like to the idea that you can be raped. The person, the person might be caught, might be convicted, but then you have to have that person, that rapist baby.
Yeah, and that's what they want, the baby. They just want it to be born, and that's it. And then after that, it's like I'll throw you to the wolves. And Mitt Romney. Speaking of Texas, Mitt Romney called out, you know, Trump's efforts and Mike Johnson's efforts to, you know, not come up with a border bill. This is what I meant to say earlier. I was trying to find it. They called him out on the border and not making any. You can't. To me, it's like you can't just call out the border and then when they present you with solutions, you say no because of Trump. And Mitt Romney and people like Gavin Newsom are calling them out.
Get
Do you think this is what he wants, the issue, Donald Trump? This is what he's doing?
I think the border is a very important issue for Donald Trump. And the fact that he would communicate to Republican senators and congresspeople that he doesn't want us to solve the border problem because he wants to blame Biden for it is really appalling. But the reality...
Mr. McConnell, I thought that was shameful, what was reported out. Completely rolling over and capitulating. Don't even get me started with the weakness of the current Speaker of the House. I mean, they don't want a deal, period, full stop. They don't want a deal. They don't want to make this a quote-unquote campaign win for Joe Biden. It's just everything you need to know about the fraud that they're perpetuating on the issue of the border. They want to make this a political issue. Consistently, they have wanted to make it ever since there were a few brave souls with that Gang of Eight. If we all remember those black and white movie days.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember that.
And ever since there, they just walk away, they run away. The first day he was in office, not the next day, the same day he gets sworn in, he puts out a comprehensive immigration plan. And yet you didn't have a counter. They had no strategy in terms of the Republican Party, even combating that. They just wanted to kill it. They didn't want to debate it. They didn't want to engage. $14 billion proposal, $14 billion. That's his latest proposal to address their stated issue of border security. 2,300 new Border Patrol agents. Another 1,000 in addition to that to deal with fentanyl. Close to another $1 billion, $850+ million just for new technology. And then address some of the issues of backlog on asylum to address those that are here waiting for asylum claims. They won't touch it. They don't want to solve this problem. They want to use it for political purposes. And again, I say this as a border state governor. No one has to introduce me to this issue. We're the largest port in the Western Hemisphere in the state of California. We live this. And I think it is a disgrace what the Republican Party is doing, what Donald Trump is doing. And this is hidden in plain sight. He sent out a tweet or some truth, whatever, saying, kill it. And these guys are so weak. It's so pathetically weak, this Republican Party. And the new speaker said, oh, yes, sir, what else would you like us to do? We don't care about America. We don't care about our freedoms and liberties. We care about politics exclusively at the expense of the American people, because all we care about is winning for winning's sake. That is shameful.
So this border, I would say I am so sick and tired of this argument over the border and over pathways to citizenship and dreamers and all the rest of it.
Biden and them said that was their first bills that they came with, though.
Either build your wall, round everybody up and throw them out, let them be, whatever you're going to do, just do it. It's been the same argument for 25 years. I think Americans here who are suffering, who are unhoused, who are on the streets, who are trying to make ends meet, we are getting lost in the fray because there's an argument about who's crossing over in Laredo, Texas every day.
But that's not
it's sickening to
the immigrants' faults. That's their fault that they don't go out and
I'm not saying it's their fault. If people are honestly coming here for their better life and to claim sanctuary and the rest of it, that's fine. It has nothing to do with them. I'm just saying that for our government to spend so much of its time on fixing what's going on thousands of miles away from me in Texas and Arizona and California, I don't want to say that I don't care. I just want to say that it's not the biggest of my priorities right now.
Exactly.
It can and should be fixed, but it shouldn't be that every single congressional session, every moment the government needs to be talking about what's going on with
political theater.
Yeah, it's complete political theater.
And Biden kind of tried to call them out on it at one point.
Complete political
I've
theater.
been clear from the very beginning, the system is broken. My first day in office, I sent Congress a comprehensive plan on immigration reform. My friends on the other side have done nothing with that. Over and over, I've asked for resources to step up action at the border. In October, I asked Congress to fund for funding that would add another 22,000 additional border agents and officers, hundreds of new immigration judges to make the judgments on the spot, a new detection equipment to stop fentanyl from coming into the country. And by the way, I've worked with China and Mexico to slow the flow of fentanyl in the United States as I speak. It's way down. So let me be clear. My team has been at the table for weeks now with a bipartisan group of senators to negotiate a deal, including border, because I believe we need significant policy changes at the border, including changes in our asylum system to ensure that we have the authorities we need to control the border. And I'm ready to act. I think, hope God willing, and the creek not rise, as my grandpa would say. I think next week we ought to be able to work out something, at least in the Senate. And I'm hopeful it's going to be the bipartisan package the Senate is going to pass, God willing. Now the question is for the Speaker and the House Republicans. Are they ready to act as well? They have to choose whether they want to solve a problem or keep weaponizing the issue to score political points against the president. I'm ready to solve the problem. I really am. Massive changes, and I mean it sincerely.
And he even made a statement that said that he would shut down the border. So if that's what they want, and that's what Republicans want, then
I think too many of them fall for it.
Why not doing it?
There was exit polling from Iowa where one of the top 2 or 3 issues for Republicans voting in the Iowa caucus was border security.
Right.
Like, you're in Iowa, you're nowhere near any border. Why would you be worried about border?
Exactly.
Not to say that you can't worry about what's going on in your country, but you should have much bigger issues than, again, what's going on in El Paso, Texas somewhere.
They tell them what to
exactly.
care about.
And they get this echo chamber, and so now border is just such a huge issue. If that's not solved, if Biden's not doing enough, and then you hear people like Marjorie Taylor Greene saying you have to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, and all of it's nonsense. It's nonsense to get to pose a wedge issue that can separate Democrats from Republicans, so that even when they do have comprehensive talks like they're having now, you'll have certain members in the House saying, "Oh, we can't support it because it's not what Donald Trump wants."
Yeah, and that's just ridiculous. Like House Speaker Mike Johnson said the deal was dead on arrival, and that's like, you're not governing. You're playing political theater, so Biden can lose, and that's, again, you're not going what's better for the country. You're going on what's better for the party in hopes of Trump winning. And then you have like Oklahoma governors talking about like civil war and things like that. Like, all that stuff is just preposterous and political theater. And like you said, y'all not even near the border. Y'all should be worried about, well, Oklahoma's not too far, but y'all should be worried about other stuff.
But still, and even the fentanyl.
And these are the states that have like the worst education and
there's plenty of fentanyl that does come through the border, but I can guarantee you that a lot of it's made in rural Texas.
There's a lot of fentanyl that's legally in the United States because
it's not all coming from Mexico. And by the way, the border isn't just one way. There's millions of people who leave the United States to go through the southern border.
Not to mention that we give them many guns.
Yeah, that's where they get a lot of their guns from. Mexico has tight gun laws, so we're the ones providing guns to the cartels down there.
Right. And then we got 2 more things to talk about. One more thing is Fani Willis. She's indicting Trump, and she got mixed up in her own little drama, which she's indicting Trump, and with 19 defendants in the case in the RICO charge, and she hired on her, alleged boyfriend or with little to experience, and now his wife, I guess, complained or they came out, and there are divorce proceedings, and people think that there's a conflict of interest there. This is what the legal analyst on MSNBC had to say.
Georgia prosecutor Fani Willis is under fire over allegations that she's involved in a romantic relationship with a lawyer she hired to assist with the prosecution of Donald Trump and 18 co-defendants in the RICO case filed in Georgia. There's a motion to remove Willis from the case and to dismiss the indictment itself. But it's important to remember that we've got 2 separate things going on here that can both be true at once. One, it may be the case that Fani Willis has engaged in ethical misconduct, a lapse of professional judgment that could even lead to sanctions against her in her role as district attorney. But it is also true that this indictment appears to be a very strong criminal case against Trump and his co-defendants. In fact, 4 of those defendants have already admitted their guilt and entered guilty pleas. Willis has not denied the claims, stating only that she is flawed and imperfect. She may have a conflict of interest in supervising and paying a romantic partner, but that's not the same as a conflict of interest that would impact a defendant's right to a fair trial. Those are 2 very different things.
So, like she said, that's 2 very different things, and I agree that Fani Willis made a mistake.
So it was a lot more than
a big mistake, and she shouldn't have not brought him in the case at all. I mean, I could see, again, if he was like a well-established prosecutor or something, or he had like a big resume, but...
See, the issue here is that Donald Trump and many of his cronies for the longest have said that this is political hack job. It's a political hit job. And district attorneys, they have a lot of discretion when bringing cases. So the problem is that she could have not brought this case. She could have not brought a RICO case. She could have not charged, even if the facts overwhelmingly suggest that these people could have been convicted of things, she had discretion there. So the reason why it looks bad is it looks like she could have just brought this case in order to pay her boyfriend hundreds of thousands of dollars to prosecute the case.
But that only looks that way to smart people who can
or anybody who, yes, if you start to draw lines like that, you can't stand up there and accuse Donald Trump of RICO, which is just, it's racketeering, it's organized crime, and then you prosecute someone in a way that seems like it's organized crime. Like, that's ridiculous.
But to me, hiring somebody is not organized crime. And
when the person is qualified, this is her boyfriend, that she's paying hundreds of thousands of dollars. He's a lawyer.
Exactly. That makes you qualified. It doesn't. Nobody has to say that your resume has to be extensive to be a prosecutor. I mean, again, we know that everybody's looking for something, and everybody's looking for every little thing. So that was her bad. That was on her fault. That she should have never did that.
That was
but.
Terrible lapse of judgment.
A terrible lapse of judgment.
Terrible. Like, if you're going to stand on your white horse, with your white hat and say, I'm here to see that justice is done and to get these people for trying to overturn an election, then you don't hire somebody who you might be in an intimate relationship with. I agree. You just don't. And you don't stand up and say, well, I'm imperfect. You just don't. Because if it doesn't work for the other side to say they're imperfect, then it shouldn't work for you, especially when you're prosecuting.
Well, Fawny, we're still rooting for you in this case.
Oh yeah, you should still take him down. He should be nowhere near a ballot anywhere again in his life, and he should be nowhere near the presidency. But don't hire your booze to.
And speaking of takedowns in your booze, Trump. E. Jean Carroll won her case against Trump, her defamation charge. I think this is the second one.
The second
one, and went from $5 million. Now he has to pay her $83 million. And after he stormed out of the courtroom, and to me, it's like that's just another loss for Trump. And that's the beginning of his losses this year. And I think that loss streak will continue for him. And then again, he went on to Truth Social right afterwards and said, absolutely ridiculous. I fully disagree with both verdicts and will be appealing this whole Biden-directed witch hunt focused on me and the Republican Party. Our legal system is out of control and being used as a political weapon. They have taken away all First Amendment rights. This is not America.
So now I might be incorrect on this, but he lost the first one. But the only reason why there's another one here is that he wouldn't shut up about it, and he went out and defamed her again.
And then he went out and kept talking.
So if you would have just shut up, you could have had your original. What was it, $5 million or $10 million, whatever it was. But then you kept on talking. Because to Trump, it's a circus, it's a joke. I will say that some of what's going on in New York in regards to these trials with Trump, some of it's definitely, in my mind, a little political, but this...
I mean, that's E.G. I think this case has, probably before, I don't know when they started this case, and in 2019, so this was while he was still president. But this case, this happened in the 90s or something, and she told someone about it, and Trump just doesn't know how to shut up. You're a big, complete narcissist, and you don't know how to keep quiet, and that keeps getting you in trouble every single time. And this is what we'll end on what his lawyer, Alina Habba, had to say.
Oh, goodness.
Ask me that question. No, I'm not having any second thoughts about representing President Trump. It is the proudest thing I could ever do. What I'm having second thoughts about is the license that I stand here with that the people in there are supposed to have. I have not spoken because I respect my ethics while I'm on trial. But let me now speak about what has happened. I have sat on trial after trial for months in this state, the state of New York. Attorney General Letitia James, and now this. Weeks. Why? Because President Trump is leading in the polls, and now we see what you get in New York. So don't get it twisted, whoever asked me that question. I am so proud to stand with President Trump. But I am not proud to stand with what I saw in that courtroom. I'm not finished. Let me just finish and I'll take questions, please. Before I walked into court, that judge decided that every single defense President Trump had, we were not allowed to raise in front of the jury. It is in writing, and I encourage the journalists, the real journalists, to take the minute to look at his orders. There was no proof. And I couldn't prove that she didn't bring in the dress. There was no DNA. There was no expert. My experts were denied. Two of them were denied to come in. They didn't let me bring up that Reid Hoffman funded Miss Kaplan. And you know what we got in there? That my witness, who was her friend, who said that she is a drug addict and the drug addict is herself. That friend, I found out in there, was paid for by Miss Kaplan's firm, and that is disgusting. That is a violation of everything I stand for, and that is why I stand with Trump. And that is why so many Americans are so proud that he is running again and so excited to run to the ballot box. But don't get it twisted. We are seeing a violation of our justice system. Ladies and gentlemen,
the thing is, with her case, she wasn't trying to prove if it actually happened. It was a defamation case.
So these people are just happy to take Trump's money and stand out and be pretty. And talk crap in the media and just hope that they can be put on the bandwagon and make it on TV somewhere. But I don't know that half the time they believe what they're saying. If you look at many of the people from his administration who came out afterward,
Joe Tacopina,
try to write all these tell-all books, and they come out with all they just want to get on the gravy train. They know Trump a lot of times is guilty and liable of these things he's being accused with. And it's just counterculture because, again, there's 74 million people who, I'm sorry, if you got 4 years of Trump and you went out and voted for him again after all you saw, you're nutty. And if you are going to vote for him again after his being indicted
91 times,
91 times, then you're super nutty. And they are playing to those people out there.
Exactly. And that's where we'll end this week on Purple Room Politics. And see you next week.
Hand clap.